Hi everyone, it's Kamal Fernandez from Kamal Fernandez Dog Training, and I'm continuing my series called Lifting All Ships, and that comes from the mantra of a rising tide lifts all ships, in that we are in a challenging time at present, and if we can all help each other and inject a level of positivity into the atmosphere, hopefully we can all be better off for it. Everyone's in a different predicament, and we are some of us are on lockdown. Certainly in the UK we're on lockdown now, so we're limited and restricted about how much movement we can make, how much exercise we can have. So it can sometimes be contentious. For some people it can be challenging, and certainly those of us that own dogs. The purpose of this series of talks is to extend out to people that I call friends, peers, mentors, and leading light in the world of reinforcement based dog training and beyond. Obviously, I've had a discussion to a prominent yoga teacher about how she's dealing with things, and she delivers online training. And I've got another friend across sitting from me now, Janice Gunn. And Janice is, some of you may not be familiar with Janice. Janice is an incredibly successful obedience and field trial competitor from Canada, and I'll let her go into a bit more of her background shortly. But just to give you a slight glimmer into her caliber that we're talking about, Janice has actually made up 10 obedience champions, which in itself is an incredible achievement. Countless, I don't know how many field trial champions, accolades, titles that she's put on dogs. Her resume is nothing short of stellar. So it's a huge a compliment to be able to have this conversation with Janice, and to pick her brains, really. So thank you very much for your time, Janice. I really do appreciate it. How are you doing at the moment?
Well, first off, thank you very much for the invite, Kamal. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think we're probably doing about the same as everybody else.
Yep.
We have limited places that we can go to. And really, we don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So, if you need to go out and do essential shopping, you can take the dog for a walk, although most of the local parks have been closed.
Wow.
Because everybody was off work and all the kids were off school.
Yep.
So then the parks became overloaded
Wow.
with people. So they had to shut those down, most of them anyway. So things are quiet, and I've just kept busy with doing online stuff.
Yep.
Trying to get my students that were, their classes were interrupted, trying to keep them engaged.
Yep.
And finding some relaxation in actually training my dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
so just to give people a little bit of insight, so you are based in Canada, in Vancouver, and you have a training facility up there. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm in, it's called Abbotsford, British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver. We're on rural property, so we're very fortunate for that, because I am able to take our dogs out on our own property.
Yeah.
And it's designed for field training, and we put up a boarding kennel and a training facility 20 plus years ago, and started off with a smaller training building and the boarding kennel, and then everything just grew and grew and grew until I just couldn't manage everything all by myself. So I ended up leasing the boarding kennel part of it, and we put up another training building that is really quite large, and it's great for seminars and events and stuff like that.
So it sounds absolutely idyllic. I mean, how many acres are you on, Janice?
So we're on 50 acres.
Wow. So no problem with exercising your dogs, etc. How many dogs have you got?
So we have 5 dogs right now, 2 Labradors. Both were, with the intention of doing field work as well as obedience. So my husband, who I met 23 years ago, was a dog person as well. And he was heavily involved in the field trial capacity of it. and that's how we met. I had started to just get a little bit involved in the lowest levels, and I met him out when we were training with friends, and so our passions were able to come together.
Wow.
And it's all about the dogs, which was great.
Yep.
So John had the vision of the boarding kennel, and
Oh,
I had the
really?
vision of the training facility.
Wow.
And so we built it together.
Oh, how amazing.
Yeah, so the dogs, have always, we've been doing this, like I said, I met John 23 years ago, so I've had a number of dogs in that time frame, and Labradors and Goldens. I started with Dalmatians.
Did
and
you? Wow.
But they were all with the intention to do both sports. So they did the highest levels of field trials and hunt tests, and I was at the same time, one weekend they'd be at a field trial, the next weekend I'd have them at an obedience trial.
Wow.
And they would just do equally well in both venues. So
wow, amazing.
Just a lot of dedicated training that we did.
Yeah. So do you both train your dogs, or do you have your dogs and he has his dogs? How does that work?
No, yeah. So they're our dogs. So the dogs that we have had over that time have done both sports, both with me and with John.
Oh,
so
wow.
He doesn't touch obedience, the competition obedience.
Yeah.
That's my deal completely. But he does the field stuff, and so he has mentored me all those years on how to become, a trainer in the field as well.
Wow.
And John is very highly accomplished. He's won a national.
Wow.
And has lots of, championships on the dogs. So,
that's
so
amazing.
the two of us together have been a good match. Combination.
So how does it? So just as a point of interest, then, so how do you guys get on in a training sense? Does it work, or do you have arguments, or is it sometimes go to your room, you have to be in your corners? How does it work?
Funny you should mention that. A lot of the field trainers, especially the men, are very quick to react.
Yeah.
So if he was a dog, I would call him reactive.
Yeah.
And he's very orderly. So everything has to be done a specific way in a specific order. So it does have its challenges for sure. But some sessions are great, and others you're kind of like, why am I doing this? But quite often a lot of husband-wife teams are like that. But I've learned a lot, through him, and
it must be great to have
dogs.
It must be great to have somebody that shares your passion with you as well. That must be amazing. So you've talked a little bit about your setup, and it sounds amazing, but you've also, the flip side in these current times is, how has it affected your business in terms of your boarding and or the clients, etc.? You talked briefly about your students. How has it affected that in that sense?
Yeah, it's been really devastating. I was one of the first schools to close once things started getting scary. A lot of people were grasping onto straws, hoping that it could stay open a little bit, but really didn't feel it was safe for our students, for our instructors. And it was recommended by, our local health authorities to, please slow things down. And so I made the decision to, stop the classes, put them on suspension, try not to cancel anything outright. And we have different levels of classes here. So we run all types of pet classes, as well as competition obedience and rally.
Okay.
So it's the pet people that it was the hardest with. A lot of them had joined in on a class set. Some of them had only 2 classes left. Some had only done 1 or 2 classes. So we kind of sent them out, using online services, have a newsletter, and, told them about the situation. And we did a 2-week delay. I just put out another newsletter that included a training tip for them, so to give them something to do. That we're going on another 3-week suspension. And the amazing thing has been, I haven't had anybody ask for a refund
Wow.
or be upset.
Hmm.
Everybody is just, so far just holding tight.
Wow.
They really want their classes to start up
Hmm.
again.
Hmm.
And so I feel really blessed that, the people are thankful
Yeah.
that the classes aren't running.
Yeah, and I think that the takeaway from that for me would be, I suspect it's because one, Janice, those of you that haven't heard of Janice, and those of us that have, Janice has an incredibly good reputation. There's several people that teach on an international level, or certainly on a broad scale, and you hear various tales about people. Nobody talks ill about Janice. That's how well thought of she is, and spoken of in how she conducts herself. For somebody that's as successful as Janice in a competitive field, she also conducts her way in herself, which I think speaks a lot of obviously how you then run your business and the community and the energy that you nurture. And that's something that I think everybody can learn from. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It's to be, how kindness is key, isn't it? Really, Janice, I think is something that I would say the interactions I've certainly had with you, and I know others have all echoed the same thing. So I think that's a testament to you and your business, really. Hence why they've kept loyal in this time.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. And the first video that I ever put up
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
for to help people train their dogs, and it's a free video,
Yep.
was 10 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, it surprised me too. I knew it was a long time, and then I looked and I was like, wow, the first video I loaded was 10 years ago.
My God.
And then the first DVD that I put out was 11 years ago. So
Wow.
time flies, but since then, I've added a number of videos, and I continually do so. And the coolest thing about it is I get emails from people that don't know me, but they've seen the videos, and they're thanking me for it. And then within the last few years, when I go to shows, because I tend to show away from my home area a fair bit, I get a lot of novice trainers coming up to me and just saying, you don't know me, but I wanted to thank you so much. And, I was stuck on this training issue, and, you've given me the courage to carry on, and
fantastic.
the knowledge. And I mean, that to me, that means a lot.
Absolutely.
It's why I do it. That's why I did it 10 years ago, is just I wanted to share what I knew and help other people.
So
and
on that, so just to say, so Janice's YouTube page is it TNT Kennels?
Yeah, it's TNT Training, but if they just put in my name, Janice Gunn, or Janice Gunn Dog Training.
Okay, perfect. I will share the link to your YouTube channel when I post this video. So how I came initially to Janice was, again, surfing the internet. I'm a dog training. It's my passion, and I stumbled across Janice's YouTube channel, and the amount of information she puts on there. She puts video tutorials. She puts her dogs competing, which then to me is a huge thing. Anybody can create a YouTube page and post videos of training in the garden, but to actually see dogs in competition, you can see her own dogs working. She's put several dogs. Actually, you gave me the name for one of my dogs, Mighty. So you have a Mighty and I have a Mighty because of on the back of that, as a sideline. But yeah, so loads of resource. The thing to say, although Janice competes in Canada and America, dog training is dog training. It doesn't matter how you train or where you train or the code that you train for, or even the sport. Good dog training is good dog training. I think that's what you'll definitely, anybody to have a look, subscribe to Janice's channel, have a look and check out some of her stuff, because she has literally 10 years worth of videos on there. So a huge library of free information, which is absolutely fantastic. So again, we talk about everybody's going to be affected. And Janice has said, I have, a great setup, I have 50 acres, etc., etc. It sounds amazing, but those things also need clients to help turn the wheels, and you have a business, etc. So everybody in their varying degrees is going to be affected by this situation, and hence why these conversations. it's things like Janice, offering free information, which is going to help people grow and be better, so that when we are come through this, and we will all come through this, we are going to be better for it. So that's amazing. So in terms of your current crop of dogs, just give me a little bit. You mentioned about your Dalmatians. Did you compete with them?
Yes, I started off with. I started off literally with neighbors' dogs,
Wow.
and because I wasn't able to have my own dog when I was a child, and my parents kept promising, when we move and we get a yard and da da da. So I would borrow all the neighbors' dogs, and then my parents would take me to the local pet competitions because I was doing the best trick dog, and so it started that way, and then finally when it was time for me to get my own dog, I was 13, 14 years old, and I chose Dalmatians. Wow. And I started off with conformation because I thought that's what I wanted to do. But once they got their breed championships, I needed more, and that's when I got into a lot of obedience with them. So right. I did compete with them, but back then I was such a horrible trainer. I was learning, and all there were back then were aversive methods. Wow. And really no food training, no toy play, and considering all that. I still got hooked on the sport and started competing. And then from there, I got tracking titles on the Dalmatians.
Wow, really?
Because I wanted to do more outdoor stuff. It was like I just wanted to be involved in the outdoors. And that's how I got into Golden Retrievers, was because I wanted to experience this outdoor field stuff that I had heard about.
Yeah. And then, so have all your subsequent Golden Retrievers come from the same line? Are they all related?
Yeah, so that's where things changed a little bit. The first Golden I had was out of some American obedience lines, and because that's what I was seeking. And she did manage to achieve some stuff in the field, but it was limited to what she could do. Yeah. And then I met my husband, John, and that's when I got field bred Goldens. Right. So they were very genetically programmed to be bird dogs. Right. And I did obedience with them as well, and I just found they did great in both. And then some Labradors thrown in as well, and now my husband's kind of retired out of the heavy field stuff, so now I've gotten back into my obedience lines again a little bit, with some agility and field mixed in.
So that's a really interesting talking point. So you said there about different types of dogs. So going a bit more on dog stuff. So Janice was talking about having dogs that are specifically sports bred. So we talk about obedience sports bred and agility sports bred versus more bred for field trials. So in the UK we have that but we don't have as many distinct lines per se. What have you found in your experience makes the best fit? Is it a dog that's got a little bit of everything in there that tends to be the best version, would you say?
Well, I think for me, because I started off with a specific line of these obedience dogs that I just adored, and that was my first ever Golden, and she was an amazing dog. I was really, really blessed. And she was willing to train, and so I think that my roots are there. She was like a real heart dog for me.
Really?
And then all my field retrievers have been wonderful. I see people making posts like, oh, I got a field Golden, and so he's got no focus. And I never found that. Right. I think you need to keep them engaged and, active and moving, but certainly I never found that focus was an issue with my field Goldens. And once I got Sparks, who is one of my current, he's just 4 years old now. He is field, agility, and obedience bred lines. And that's kind of where I'm really comfortable right now. So kind of getting back into my roots. But for me, I like to have working lines as opposed to conformation. That's not as important for me, but more so the sport dog.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked as well about your journey as a trainer. And I think all of us that are certainly, I would say, been in dog training at least 20 years would have started probably more a traditional with a level of aversives or compulsion. I think that's a natural journey that all of us, certainly, I mean, I've been training dogs for nearly 30 years. You've said you've been training dogs for a period of time. I think everybody, because there was no positive clicker training per se, not in dog training. It was quite almost dog training that was very much its own little niche area, and the science stuff was that hokey pokey stuff you did in the laboratory. The two things never intertwined. What was your turning point, and who was your influences to transition then, or to incorporate more positive stuff?
So I was, I guess, what you call a balance trainer. Yep. And my early mentor, which was almost, must be 17 plus years ago now, was in California. Her name is Anne Marie. And she was, because around where I lived, I found that methods were quite archaic. So I traveled from British Columbia to California, which was a huge commitment.
Wow. So just give people an idea of how long that would have taken you then, so people in the UK, just to equate it to, how long would that take you to go from British Columbia to California?
Well, if you were driving, it would take me 3 days, but quite often I would get on a plane and fly.
Right.
And so it's a number, like a couple thousand miles away. Wow. I would say.
And how long would the flight be? Would it be a couple of hours?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot less. And back then, I don't like to fly dogs today, but back then it was okay, and it worked. Yeah. And so I would see her, a few times a year, right. And I got a really good base. But there was, balanced compulsion still based, but I learned a ton. Yeah. And then she retired, and so I started just training on my own, and that's when I got Mighty, the Labrador. Yep. And he's still with us. He's going on 9 years old now. The most brilliant really? Dog I've ever had. And so I started training tricks with him. And that was my, 9 years ago, that was like my introduction to trick training. And that was clicker based, and it was all positive. And I thought, this is really good. I'm really enjoying this. And shaping, learned all about, shaping and offering and all that. And so that was my turning point. Wow. And then Michelle Pulio, I met her around that time as well. So she was inspiration for me.
She's a phenomenal trainer, phenomenal.
And she was, and she encouraged
and still
me.
Is.
She called me the what do you call it? Changeover trainer.
Yeah, crossover.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So she's like, you're a crossover trainer, and so, she mentored me along that path as well. And other trainers, Emily Larham.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She was doing, tricks at that time. And so I just started following more people like that. I have trained a lot. Sylvia Bishop did a lot of seminars over here, and she's a lot of fun, and I got a lot of great stuff from Sylvia as well. But I just kind of broke into my own path,
and you formed your own way. Yeah.
And I just love it, because what I find is, I don't have to correct the dog. Yeah. And I have so many other ways to tell my dog that wasn't how I wanted it done. Yeah. I can communicate with them in a really nice manner without a physical correction or verbal correction. And then from some of the IPO, I started following a few IPO people as well, and just for the drive building, because they're really big in Michael Ellis, help with the drive building as well, and I enjoyed that part of it, because that wasn't something that CKC, AKC trainers were doing.
Yeah, they emphasize, Yeah.
They just weren't. It was all about, precision
Yeah.
and consequences and you have to do this.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah.
through the dry building, I found a lot of ways that, I could communicate to the dogs much better.
Yeah.
There's another trainer that came over here from Europe. His name is Marco, and he was influential as well as letting me see this different picture.
Yeah.
And so I learned how to tug with my dogs and play properly with my dogs. And then it evolved to today where, there's people like yourself that, are gracious to offer courses and allow anybody to be able to, sign up and learn even more new techniques.
Yeah, hopefully. So, as Janice was explaining, Janice is one of my on my VIP heel work course, and she always makes really constructive feedback, and she's an active participant. So it's great having somebody of that expertise on the course. It's really interesting hearing you talk and how many parallels to my own personal training journey, in that coming from a similar background, and I think that we're both very similar in that we're a little bit dog training animacs. Really, we're continually looking to other sources to try and improve what we do. And I think you've raised a really really good point, which I don't think a lot of people pick up on, is don't be so closed-minded in that just looking within your sport, because there's dog training is dog training is dog training. If you look at somebody for trick training, it can help you sort your obedience problem out. If you look at somebody in IPO, it can help you build drive, and so forth and so forth. The method, you have to sometimes look beyond the tools, etc. Some different sports are a little bit more aversive, but if you keep an open mind and go in there without judgment, and you glean what is good dog training, I think you can absolutely gain so much. So that's a really really good point. The other thing that I thought was really interesting you saying is that I think all of us that have come from being, for want of a better term, balanced dog trainers, sometimes I think that there can be some bashing of, that's bad and da, da. For me personally, my take on it is, I don't regret for a minute the journey that I had and the way in which I came to what I do, because it actually gave me some really really core dog training skills that I'm absolutely beneficial for. The ability to read dogs, the ability to have timing, all really comes from that, more being truthful, that aversive approach. Because if you mistimed the use of compulsion, or if you did a bad correction, or if you didn't read the dog correctly in the moment, you could do serious damage to the training, as it were. Now, I'm not justifying some of the things that we did of old, but I think that if you look back and feel a level of guilt, I said you're never going to move forward and be better for it. So would you say any thoughts on that, Janice?
Yes, one of my really early mentors as well. I don't know if you're familiar with Patty Russo.
Yeah. She was ahead of her time, very ahead of her time.
Patty Russo was, she was, we're going back like 20 years ago, and there was a gal that was bringing her into the Seattle area. I had my Dalmatians then even, and I was invited to go to Patty's seminars in Seattle. And so Patty was just a wonderful person. And they hooked up with Ted Turner, who was, the sea mammal trainer and clicker trainer with dolphins and whales, etc. And her and Leslie Nielsen studied Ted's process, and so she brought that into her dog training, and she was one of the first people to do that. And so one thing that Patty always said was, positive does not mean permissive. And so even though I don't find the need to correct my dogs when I'm training them in obedience, I do have leadership skills. And so, and I think that's one thing that people don't understand when you say you're a positive trainer. Even at Clicker Expo one year, they said, there's no such thing as positively or purely positive or purely, compulsive. It's like, so everybody has sort of a little bit in between, but leadership skills are really important. So, my dogs can't pull me on the lead. They need to come when they're called, like those basic skills. are really important. And so, the dog, like I've got a couple of my Labradors are really, really pushy dogs. So I have to give skills where they need to sit before they go out the door, where they're just going to push right past me. And when I give seminars and stuff, I see that missing in a lot of, doesn't matter what kind of training they're doing, they're missing these everyday skills, which I think are really important.
Hearts for that. Absolutely, Janice. I totally agree. I think that, so this is a really, really, really good time if you are to look at those skills. If you have a dog that has behavior that is challenging, this is your absolute golden opportunity to work on those things, because you have time, and those little niggly things you can absolutely work on at home, in the garden, loose lead walking, sitting at gates, coming back when they're called. So when you go back out in the big wide world, you're going to have and bearing in mind the beauty of this moment, and I'm going to phrase it that way, is people are being very cautious about interaction with each other. Never mind dog-to-dog interaction, cautious with interaction with each other. That means that people are going to give you space to be able to train your dog. So you can create distance. It can be social distancing. Everybody's going to be on board with that, because the whole world is now social distancing, having social distance. And you can do your bit of dog training and work on focus and connection, which is going to help your sports stuff tenfold. At the moment I'm able to drive to where I walk my dogs. There is a possibility that's going to get more stringent as the weeks pass, and there is a possibility that I will have to walk my dogs to the park. I have 10 dogs that I have a lot of dogs. My dogs will walk on the lead. They don't pull me. Everybody understands to come back when they're called. And even if I have to walk, it's not to be fair, it's not a lengthy walk. But it's convenient to pop them in the car, drive to the place where I normally end. It's really scenic and I walk them. But however, if need be, they have the skill of understanding everybody walks with me, and they do what I call a get-in, because it makes my life easier. And it's these situations where you absolutely are grateful for putting those skills into your dog. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And just when I compete with my dogs, we're in and out of hotels, we're in and out of their lobbies, we're on and off the elevators, and so they're constantly, people around, and they need to have, they need to be with me, not pulling me, not jumping on people. So, if you want to go other places with your dogs as well, even if people are away, they're more separated now, you need to have these basic manners on them, because it would be dreadful if, when things were more crowded and I go to these places, if my dogs were pulling me all over the place, it's not good to advocate that dog ownership at all, because a lot of hotels don't even want dogs there. So if they're acting unruly, even the pet dogs, they need to have these skills.
Absolutely. I absolutely 150%. I think that a couple of things that you said, which I think are really, really critical to reiterate, is one, positive training is not permissive training. Two, there's a distinction between having leadership and being. So when I say, my dogs are not oppressed, they're not browbeaten, they don't go around with their tails between their legs, etc. They happily walk with me because that's what they've been taught to do, and it's been reinforced, etc. They all come back, They willingly come back, because again, you work at it. There is a time when all young dogs say, no, I don't think I'm going to, and then you have consequences. Mine would be I'd walk up and put the hand in the collar and count to 10 and then try again or whatever. You can argue on the spectrum of how good, bad, or indifferent that is. It really is neither here nor there. The point is, there needs to be consistency, it needs to be reinforced, and this is absolutely the time to be putting that work in. Fantastic advice there, Janice. So moving on with the conversation, coming back to more core dog training, you have your young puppy at 7.
Yes.
And how old is he?
He just turned 10 months old.
Okay, and why 7 then? What was the thinking behind that name?
I was really had a difficult time coming up with a name at all. And I looked through all kinds of different names on the internet, Irish dog names, English dog names, I just everything. And I had this this name Seven in the back of my mind. I was still trying to come up with something else, but I just couldn't. And then when I looked up the meaning of seven, what the number seven signifies, then it just all came together for me, because it means, it's a positive number, it's a magical number, said a lot of great things. And so there was no correlation with he's the seventh dog in the household or anything like that. It was just a name that I liked.
And how are you pleased with him? How's he going?
Yeah, so he is the son of my dog, my male Sparks.
Okay.
And Seven was bred locally. And so it was kind of neat because I was able to, go see him from pretty much day one. Now, there were only 2 puppies in the litter, a male and a female. And I wasn't up for a female, so I had one choice. And, you've probably read and heard many times that, people that have a champion dog, they got the last one in the litter, it was the one nobody wanted, stuff like that. And this isn't the only dog that I've had that was the only male in the litter. But, so I watched him develop, and the breeder had some incredible setups for these puppies, agility tunnels, outdoor area, walks every day, through the woods and stuff, swings, all that kind of thing. And so I was able to go and visit with him and, check out if he liked birds and all that kind of thing. And he just fit into the category of everything that I liked, and he's a character. He is he's a powerful little guy, and he's very strong, yet he's very smart, and he's very willing.
Oh, really? Lovely.
He needs a lot of molding. I think he would be hard for a first-time dog owner.
Okay.
Because he can question things a lot, and but as soon as you can convey to him what you want, he's like, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah. And so I'm quite enjoying working with him.
So just as a little aside, again, a little insight into your perspective, you've got what can sometimes be a very fatal a combination of father versus son, and people often do that. They either go and get and they get then a classic case of second dog syndrome. How do you, as somebody that's experienced and had several dogs that have been related, how do you deal and prevent that becoming an issue for your dogs then, or for your relationship?
So do you mean them like not getting as much attention, the other dogs?
No, meaning as in comparing. So obviously you've got Sparks, and then you've got his son Seven. How do you avoid the comparisons of saying, oh, well, Sparks didn't do that, or Sparks is good, and Seven doesn't, isn't, or etc., or avoiding those pitfalls? Right. How do you, as a trainer?
I've kind of just, really tried to look at the positives of the dogs, their positive traits. And I know, Sparks and Seven and any dog have, some traits that I don't like as much as, but I can kind of, as long as it's not temperament related, you can kind of weed those out with training. Yeah. And so I just kind of look at the things in the dog that I really like and try to develop those and put those in the forefront.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And are they similar in character and temperament?
They're actually quite a bit different. Really? Sparks is, which really surprised me. Sparks is, he is a really fun dog. He's really, really attached to me quite strongly, and so that can, he can kind of get a little bit on edge sometimes. In the ring too, I have to be careful. Like, I like to interact with my dogs in between exercises. I don't like to stay real formal with them because we're there to have fun as well. So when I release them, we usually interact a little bit, and I have to be careful with Sparks because I could put him over the top. Wow, really? And so he could go over the top fairly easily. And whereas Seven he's more even keel. He's still got the energy, and but that little bit of extra edge, that isn't always beneficial to you,
Yeah.
to your dog in the ring.
Yeah.
But Sparks has been able to focus and concentrate. It's just that he can get stimulated easier. I think, than Seven.
Right. Okay, that's really interesting to say how you deal with the difference in characteristics. So in terms of your, obviously, I'm so sure the similar in Canada, there is an uncertainty when we're going to be able to trial or compete again or show again. How, as a top level competitor, are you dealing with that and keeping yourself motivated and focused? Because the timeline of what you're aiming for has all been moved. Obviously, you had, would you because you were invited to the nationals, and that's obviously all up in the air, etc., etc. So how have you
Yes.
managed your mental game in this situation then?
Well, I'm trying not to look into the future, because when I do that, it kind of scares me, and
Yep.
and it's unknown.
Yep.
Like if you start thinking, if I start thinking too far ahead, like they'll never, is it going to be a year till I get to a dog show? And if I go and stay in a hotel, like, am I going to be really nervous to touch anything? And, like there's all these things that you can let your mind just like race away with.
Absolutely.
And so I really try not to go there. And so I'm really dealing with things more so like in with a future outlook, but more in a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, good.
And so, and it's keeping me in a good frame of mind. And I'm staying, up to date with what's going on. So it's not like I'm putting my head in the sand and I don't know what's going on. I do. But try to find, a bright light to it, and just, I'm training my dogs, and I'm thinking, I am thinking future. I'm doing some more online videos, just training tips. And I need to, we're looking at, we've got our competition classes where there's, they only have 1 or 2 classes left to do, putting a program together for them so that they can finish up.
Fantastic.
And my instructors are on board with that, which I think is wonderful because, it's new. You and Susan Garrett and, and Denise, you guys are like way above me in that technology. So for me, it's a real learning curve. And, because I do compete so much in both field and obedience, I never have time to really sit down and get into the technology that's out there today. So, this is kind of giving me the opportunity to do
absolutely.
that.
And I think that's the thing. It's the resounding point that I think you've made is, one, to be optimistic and positive, and to be present in the moment and be productive in the use of your time, whether it's training your dogs, because that's often, for a lot of us, I think, what gives us structure, it gives us joy, it keeps us happy. And don't not train your dogs because we don't know the timeline. Get out involved, just train little bits, keep buoyant, keep upbeat, keep ticking those skills over. With your older dogs, go back and revisit foundation. If you've got young dogs, put the work in, bring them on. You've got stacks of time. I mean, I've been doing like lots and little 5-minute sessions with my dogs throughout the day. If I've been doing, especially like I'm doing a lot online, I'm doing a lot of videoing, it can get a bit intense. I need that little relief. Okay, obviously I have a daughter as well. I need to balance things, and my dogs are my outlet to just center myself and to regroup. So great advice there, Janice. So coming back to your online training, you've said that you've actually obviously restructured your the way you format your classes. So you've offered online stuff for your classes that you're currently running. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Not for the pet people, because I'm not really sure how, like, this is new to me anyways, and I'm not, the competition people and the rally people have some skills, like they have a base set of skills already. They've been with us for a while, they've been taking classes for a while, whereas, a lot of the puppy people and the adult dog classes, this is their first set. They don't have skills. They don't know what they're doing, and I'm not really sure if I can approach that, if I should approach that, and if it's even possible.
Janice, if you're my absolute, do it, Janice. get on like webinars, do a Facebook group, get your because they will absolutely benefit from it. I know several people that I've spoken to, I've said to them about how to set up a little Facebook group for their clients, get them on board, do little webinars. You're so great in front of you're very comfortable in delivering information in that format. You'll absolutely do amazing at it. So in terms of, obviously you've been in posting on YouTube for quite some time. How about in terms of what you offer online? What do you do online for sports people then?
So I started off, the first video that I put out was in 2009, and that was a DVD, like in a DVD format. And that was, sort of my step-by-step training at that time. That was, back in 2009 there, I was, pretty much, I would say a still light balance trainer. Yeah. So even there was just one thing on the video that I don't do anymore, which would be like an ear squeeze for retrieve. Otherwise everything on the video still stands today. It's more of a teaching, type video, but that is a real steady Eddie. And then since then, I have developed other ones of proofing and problem solving, puppy video, some on how I have taught healing. There's a couple of different methods that I've used, and I'm just sharing with people, my techniques and what I've done over the years to help them with their program.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing there is the beauty of online training is that it has more flexibility. I think that's one of the things that anybody that's thinking about doing it has more flexibility. So as Janice has just very openly and candidly said, she's evolved as a trainer. What she used to do in 2009, considering that was 11 years ago, you are totally a different trainer. Like I know I am from 11 years ago. I'm a different trainer. I look at things differently. I approach things differently. I think when that's the restrictions of something like a book or a DVD is it's locked in, as it were. Whereas the beauty of online training is that you can evolve. It's a living, breathing organism, and I think one of the things that I was definitely I think has been really, really helpful is what people tend to do. Yes, you need to, like at the moment I'm videoing and I've got basic stuff and I'm trying to put a basic foundation in. But a lot of the stuff I do is ad hoc. I look at what my students want and I create a video to fit in that bit. And because if you often, what I did when I first did my online training, I did a week's worth of videoing. And largely I've used, I would say, 15% of it because I had in my head it was going to be this. When I reached out to my, the people that follow me, etc., they were like, oh no, we want you to talk about this. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to think on my feet. So one of the things I would say that anybody that's contemplating online training, don't be too fixed in when you don't lock it all in. Have your base foundation of stuff like, core games, core principles that you will always have as a trainer, and then allow the process to be a little bit organic and build on and reach out to your clients and your communities and ask them, what is it that you want of me? What would you like to see me teach? What is your struggles? And it creates that dialogue. And for me, that's a really, really important point to illustrate. And Janice has very beautifully articulated it there. So in terms of people wanting to, they can obviously look at your your YouTube page. They can look at your stuff online. What else? Are you on other social media?
Yeah, so I have, like I said, the YouTube and Facebook. So, I have Janice Gunn. I do have TNT Training as well on Facebook. And what else am I doing? My website. Yeah. So I have a lot of information on my website.
Yeah, you're really good with updating it as well.
Really. What's that?
You're very good at updating it. Very good.
Yeah, I have a gal that started with me. She's my webmaster, and she was into dogs a little bit at the time and worked in a veterinarian clinic, and then started getting into website design. And so I was one of her first clients, and we've been together for like 20 plus years. Wow. And so she's been, kind of the wings beneath my wings, wind beneath my wings, because she has encouraged me, you know, you need to do this, you need, you know, and that's, it's great, you know, somebody pushing me a little bit. And so the website has a lot of information, tntkennels.com. It has the, you know, I've put out my DVDs originally, but now everything is online. And so just kind of evolving and working on just little training tips now, you know, shorter ones, not the long format. And because, as you say, you kind of, with the you know, back 209, you're set in a different world at that time, and things evolve so much. If you're I think if you're a good trainer, things should evolve for you. You know, it's not like, well, you know, and there are a lot of people out there that just refuse to change. It's like, this is the way I've always done it, this is the way it's going to be. And I think they're missing out on some, you know, really exciting stuff.
I think, you know, not to judge people for their own journey, in the sense that if you're comfortable and you're happy with what you do, all power to you. For me, I am constantly looking for better, more innovative ways to not only help myself, but also my students and my dogs. If I can find a way to make it clearer for the dog, more concise for the dog and my students, and train it, like I'm piddling around now at the moment with new things for heel work training, which I haven't really, you know, gone into great depth over or shared with that extensively, because I'm thinking of better ways to do it. And with Jungle, I'm training things very differently, consciously, because I can train a dog to do heel work in a certain method or a certain approach, but is there benefit of doing this? Can I do it better? Can I try and do, and it's not being afraid to take risks, I think, is a really, really a good thing to keep. And it keeps me interested. I'm sure for you, after, you know, the career that you've had, it's keeping it novel, keeping it interesting, isn't it, Janice?
That's 100%. You know, that's for me. I, you know, how have we managed to stay in it for this many years? Because it's always changing. There's new things that you're doing with your dogs. There's different things you're coming up with or learning, you know, from somebody else's influence, and trying those. And it keeps things fresh. It keeps them fresh and interesting. And the dogs appreciate lots of variety as well. I think they appreciate trying different things out, you know, too.
Absolutely. Janice, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. It's been super fun, super insightful. You know, your generosity and in terms of what you put out on YouTube is amazing. I'll definitely pop that in the link. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you and your family and everybody around you stay safe. And I hope we'll get through this and be better off for it. And love and best wishes to you. Thank you very much, Janice. Take care.
And thank you so much. You guys take care too.